Every year, on the first 2 days of November, millions of families across Mexico, Central America, and the United States build altars in their homes. They cover them with marigolds, photographs, food, and candles. They go to cemeteries at midnight and eat beside the graves of people they have lost. They are not mourning, they are welcoming. The holiday is called Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. And almost everything most people believe about where it comes from is wrong. It is not ancient in the form we know it. It is not a seamless survival of pre-Columbian tradition. And it does not fall in November by accident. It falls in November because a Spanish friar made a decision in the 16th century. He moved a festival. He moved it 2 months forward, attached it to Catholic saints' days, and hoped the original would die. It did not die, but it changed. And the change tells you something about how culture actually works, not as preservation, but as negotiation between the living and the powerful. The popular story of Dia de los Muertos runs like this. The Aztecs celebrated death in late October. The Spanish arrived, tried to suppress it, failed, and the two traditions fused into what we see today. Every part of that story contains a distortion. The Aztecs did not celebrate death in late October. Their two major death festivals fell in August, specifically in the 9th and 10th periods of their solar calendar, each lasting 20 days. The 9th period was called Tlaxochimaco, the offering of flowers. The 10th was called Zocotl fruitfalls. Together, they honored the dead children first, then the adult dead, consecutively, in summer. The date of November 1st and 2nd was not a compromise, it was a replacement. The Spanish Catholic Church moved the festivals to align with All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, and the two-part structure, children first, adults second, survived the transplant intact. That structural survival is the mechanism. That is how a 3,000-year-old ritual is still alive in the 21st century. To understand what was moved, you have to understand what it was. In the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan, the island capital that would become Mexico City, the calendar was not a convenience. It was a cosmological map. Every 20-day period had its own gods, its own obligations, its own rituals. The calendar structured war, agriculture, birth, and death with equal precision. The goddess who presided over the dead was named Mictecacihuatl, the Lady of Mictlan, the Aztec underworld. Her role was specific. She watched over the bones of the dead. The Aztecs believed that bones were the seed of future life, that when the current world age ended, the bones of the dead would be used to create new human beings. Mictecacihuatl was their guardian. Once a year, she was believed to ascend to the land of the living to verify that the bones were being properly honored. The underworld she governed, Mictlan, was not a place of punishment. This is perhaps the most important thing to understand and the most consistently misrepresented. The Aztec underworld had nothing to do with moral judgment. Where you went after death was determined entirely by how you died. Warriors who died in battle went east to accompany the rising sun. Women who died in childbirth, honored as warriors, went west with the setting sun. Victims of rain god diseases went to a paradise called Tlalocan. Ordinary death sent the soul on the hardest journey, through 9 levels of Mictlan over 4 years, guided by a dog companion. The 9 obstacles were not punishments, they were terrain, a wide, roaring river, 2 mountains that crashed together, a plain of obsidian wind, 8 snow-covered peaks, invisible arches, wild beasts, a black lake, 9 rivers of mist and darkness. At the end of 4 years, the soul reached the Lord and Lady of the underworld and dissolved. This is why dogs were buried with the dead. The Xoloitzcuintli, the hairless dog, was believed to guide the soul across the first river. Its body warmth comforted the soul through 4 years of cold and dark. And this is why food was placed at graves for 4 consecutive years after death. The soul was still traveling, still in need of sustenance. The living were provisioning a traveler on a known journey of specific duration. After 4 years, the offerings stopped. In 1521, Hernán Cortés completed the conquest of Tenochtitlan. The city fell in August. The same month, the death festivals were held. The Spanish began the systematic replacement of Aztec religion with Catholicism. The Franciscan missionaries, who followed the conquistadors, faced a problem. The Aztec festivals were not disappearing. They were persisting, renamed, reframed, hidden inside Catholic feast days, but structurally intact. The indigenous people were celebrating the dead in August, and the missionaries could not stop them. A Dominican friar named Diego Durán decided to document what he could not eradicate. In the 1570s, 50 years after the conquest, he interviewed survivors of pre-conquest religious life. He wrote down everything they remembered about the festivals, the gods, the rituals, the calendar. His explicit purpose was to help Catholic priests identify hidden paganism and suppress it. Durán was alarmed. He recognized that the Aztec death festivals were continuing under Catholic disguise. And he wrote a warning manual for confessors. That warning manual is now our most detailed source for what the original festivals looked like. The Franciscan impulse that sought to erase the original festivals preserved their memory in the act of erasing them. A second friar, Bernardino de Sahagún, compiled what became known as the Florentine Codex, a 12-volume ethnographic record of Aztec life, conducted in Nahuatl with indigenous informants, translated into Spanish in parallel columns. Sahagún's method was systematic. He interviewed elders. He cross-checked accounts. He documented the festivals in extraordinary detail, including the serpentine dances of Tlaxochimaco, the specific flowers offered to the war god Huitzilopochtli, the tamales made the night before, the pulque drunk only by elders. Both men were trying to destroy what they were documenting. Both men failed. Both men saved it. The Church's solution was strategic. Rather than suppress the death festivals outright, which had already failed, the missionaries moved them. They shifted the indigenous commemorations of the dead to November 1st and 2nd, the Catholic dates of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. The logic was assimilation. Let the indigenous people honor their dead, but on Catholic dates, in Catholic forms. The two-part structure survived the move. November 1st became the day for dead children, Día de los Angelitos, the day of the little angels. November the 2nd became the day for adult dead. This maps directly onto the 2 consecutive Aztec periods. The 9th, honoring dead children, followed by the 10th, honoring adult dead. The theology changed. The structure held. The holiday that emerged from this collision was neither purely Aztec nor purely Catholic. It was a negotiation, and like all negotiations under conditions of extreme power imbalance, it preserved the form of the original while changing its content. By the 19th century, Día de los Muertos had become part of Mexican national identity. When Mexico won independence from Spain in 1821, the holiday survived the separation of church and state. In rural communities, it remained religious. In cities, it became secular and political. In 1910, a Mexican printmaker and lithographer named José Guadalupe Posada created an image that would become the public face of the holiday. He drew a female skeleton wearing a French hat, adorned with flowers and feathers. A satirical portrait of a Mexican woman who had abandoned her indigenous heritage to appear more European. He called her La Catrina, the elegant skull. The image was meant to mock social climbing and denial of indigenous identity. It was meant to say, death is democratic. In the end, we all end up as skeletons, regardless of the hat. La Catrina became the symbol of Dia de los Muertos worldwide. In the 1970s, Chicano artists and activists in Los Angeles, specifically the collective at Self-Help Graphics and Art in East Los Angeles, organized public celebrations of Dia de los Muertos as a form of cultural reclamation. They built altars in public spaces. They held processions. They explicitly connected the holiday to pre-Columbian roots that the Catholic overlay had obscured. The Chicano movement turned a religious observance into a political act. By the 1980s, Day of the Dead altars were being built for victims of the AIDS epidemic, for the thousands who disappeared during Mexico's drug war, for those killed in the 1985 earthquake. The holiday had become a container for grief that official culture did not accommodate. Today, Dia de los Muertos is celebrated on every continent. It has been recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The image of La Catrina appears on merchandise in countries where no one has ever heard of José Guadalupe Posada. The marigold, the Sempaso Chile, whose strong scent was believed to guide souls home, is now sold in supermarkets in November from London to Tokyo. The Origin Moment, an August festival in Tenochtitlan, held in the 9th and 10th periods of the Aztec solar calendar, honoring dead children and dead adults in consecutive 20-day periods, presided over by the Lady of the Dead, provisioning souls on a 4-year journey through 9 levels of the underworld. The mechanism by which it stuck. A Spanish friar named Diego Durán tried to document it in order to destroy it. He moved it 2 months forward. He attached it to Catholic saints' days. He changed the theology and kept the structure. The 2-part form, children first, adults second, survived intact. The friar's surveillance preserved what his suppression could not erase, the behavior still alive today. On November 1st and 2nd, families across the Americas and beyond build altars, bring food to cemeteries, and light candles to guide the dead home. They are not performing an ancient ritual unchanged. They are performing a negotiation between an empire that fell in 1521 and a church that tried to replace it, between a summer festival and a November date, between a goddess of bones and a skeleton in a French hat. The dead come home in November because a friar moved them there. They stayed because the living kept calling them back.